When a black woman is asked to give up her business class seat for a white man with less status, most people assume she'll stay quiet. But Evelyn Brooks wasn't most people. What the airline didn't know is who she was. Not just a CEO, not just a major shareholder, but a woman who came prepared. By the time they realized their mistake, it wasn't just about a seat, it was about a system. And she had the receipts. Have you ever watched an empire crumble in silence, just because they underestimated the wrong black woman? If you're listening from Atlanta, from Oakland, from the Bronx, or Nairobi, drop a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. All right, let me tell y'all what really happened on Flight 728. The plane hadn't even finished boarding when the air shifted. Gate agents had just called Group 1, and the few early birds in business class were settling into their oversized seats. Row 3C, aisle side, already had a passenger. An older black woman dressed in a heather gray shawl and soft wool trousers. Her posture was perfect. She didn't speak, didn't fidget. She was simply there. That was the problem. Candace Miller, the gate agent now helping close boarding, paused in the aisle with a slight frown on her face. Her eyes flicked to the woman, then to the screen on her handheld scanner, then back again. She cleared her throat, smiling tightly. "Ma'am, I believe you're in the wrong seat." The woman didn't react immediately. She was adjusting the strap on her leather satchel, carefully tucking it under the seat in front of her. Candace tried again, louder this time. "This is business class, ma'am. If you're flying economy, boarding is still underway back there." The woman finally looked up. Her voice was low, smooth, with a southern edge. "I am in the right seat." Candace's smile turned brittle. "Well, sometimes our system mislabels. Could I see your boarding pass?" The woman didn't blink. She reached calmly into the side pocket of her coat and produced a crisp boarding pass. Candace took it, barely glancing. "Brooks, Evelyn Brooks, seat 3C." She trailed off, frowned, then looked again, and again. Her smile vanished, but she didn't hand the pass back. "You said your name is Evelyn Brooks," she asked slowly, like the syllables needed verifying. Evelyn didn't move. "I didn't say anything yet," she replied gently. "But that's correct." Candace's fingers hovered above her scanner. She didn't scan the pass, she just held it. Behind them, more passengers were boarding. A tall white man in a Patagonia jacket brushed past and took 3A. Candace stepped aside, lowering her voice. "Ma'am, we just need to confirm. Sometimes economy passengers sneak up here when the gate is busy." A pause. Evelyn tilted her head, eyes narrowing just enough to be noticed. "Would you say the same," she asked quietly, "if I were a man in a blue suit?" Candace froze, then blinked. She forced a chuckle. "It's not about that, ma'am. It's just... we need to be extra careful these days." "You mean," Evelyn replied, still calm, "with people who don't look like they belong?" A few heads nearby turned slightly. From the back of the cabin, a younger woman with box braids and oversized sunglasses slowly lowered her phone into her lap and hit record. No words, just video. Another man in row 4 looked up from his tablet, then looked down again. Silence settled, uncomfortable. Breathing space thin. Candace's smile was gone now. "I'll be right back," she said abruptly. She handed the pass to someone just behind her. Trevor, the floor manager. "Can you run this through the main desk?" she whispered. Trevor, mid-40s, crew badge gleaming, took the paper and squinted at it like it might be fake. He looked down the aisle at Evelyn, then back at the boarding pass, then gave a short nod and walked briskly toward the jet bridge. Candace turned back to Evelyn with a renewed smile. It didn't reach her eyes. "While we confirm, I'll have to ask you to stand, ma'am." "No, thank you," Evelyn said. Her voice didn't change. It was still calm, still even. "I'm sitting in the seat I paid for. I've shown you my documentation. If you need to confirm it, please do so. I'll remain here." Candace glanced around. A few passengers were clearly listening now. One man in 5D leaned toward his neighbor and whispered something that ended in entitled. Candace folded her arms. "Refusal to comply with crew instructions may result in removal from the aircraft." Evelyn looked at her, steady, still. "I'm not refusing," she said. "I'm simply waiting, as you asked me to." Another beat. Candace exhaled sharply and turned away. Back in the jet bridge, Trevor returned, a slight edge to his walk. He held the boarding pass, now scanned, and said nothing for a second, then leaned toward Candace and said low and fast, "It matches the manifest. She's listed in business class. No flags, no issues." Candace's lips tightened. "Seriously, I could have sworn—" Trevor cut her off with a glance. "She's legit." They turned back toward the cabin, but by now, things had shifted again. The woman with the box braids was still recording. The man in 4A had posted something on Threads. Another passenger had opened TikTok. Candace returned, forcing a smile that felt colder now. "All confirmed," she said, but Evelyn didn't respond. She was tucking a slim silver phone back into her purse. The screen had gone dark. Before she zipped the bag, one passenger caught a glimpse of the timepiece around her wrist. Thin, gold, discreet, but unmistakable. Patek Philippe, the kind of watch not bought, but chosen. The kind worn by those who don't need to prove anything. Evelyn finally looked up. "Are we done?" she asked. Candace nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Yes, ma'am." Evelyn looked forward again, folding her shawl carefully over her lap, and said nothing more. But the cabin wasn't silent. Not anymore. The cabin didn't settle. Not the way it usually does after a pre-flight announcement. Not with that soft lull that comes when passengers find their seats and crew start pouring orange juice into short glasses. This time, it was different. Something electric clung to the air, like the split second between lightning and thunder. Evelyn Brooks sat still in seat 3C, both hands folded over the small leather notebook that now rested on her tray table. Her shoulders were relaxed, her shawl draped with intention, not accident. Her face gave away nothing, neither irritation nor triumph. It was that silence that unsettled people. One row behind her, the young woman with the oversized sunglasses and box braids hadn't stopped recording. Her name was Alicia Kemp. She was 23, sharp-eyed, always half-looking for something the news hadn't noticed yet. And she'd found it. Her phone was angled just slightly over the seatback. She whispered into the microphone. "She's just sitting there, calm as can be." But they tried to move her like she was a mistake. The comment section exploded. They only question her because she's black. "This feels familiar. Please tell me she sues them." The live stream had passed 20,000 views in under 10 minutes. On-screen reactions came faster than Alicia could read. One user had already clipped the moment Candace said, "Sometimes economy passengers sneak up here." Another account had added bold text across the video. "Still happening in 2025. Up in seat 1A, a man in his 50s paused his podcast. He looked back. Evelyn wasn't speaking. She was writing. Tiny, careful handwriting. From what he could see, it wasn't a diary. There were bullet points, names, times, short phrases underlined. She'd written the gate number. Then, boarding delay, reason unclear. Then, gate agent Candace Miller, badge C771. Then, Trevor, supervisor, no formal greeting. Then, refusal to scan boarding pass. She turned the page. The man in 1A swallowed hard and looked away. At the front of the plane near the galley, Candace stood with Trevor, arms folded tightly across her chest. "She's got an attitude," Candace whispered, "but not like mouthy, just like she already knows how this ends." Trevor didn't laugh this time. He looked down the aisle toward 3C, then leaned closer. "She doesn't feel like a regular passenger. You think she's press?" "No," he said. "Worse." Candace blinked. "What's worse than press?" Trevor shrugged. "Someone with receipts." Back in row 4, a man in a smart charcoal blazer had taken out his tablet and quietly opened a browser. He typed in, "Evelyn Brooks, Charlotte." Nothing came up. He tried again. "Evelyn Brooks, board member." Then "Evelyn Brooks, equity." Then just "Evelyn Brooks plus CEO." He scrolled. 1 hit, then 2. Then a blurry photo from a Forbes conference last year. Panel title, "The Quiet Powerhouses, Founders Who Refuse the Spotlight." One of the faces, Evelyn Brooks. He didn't react. He just clicked to save the article. Meanwhile, Alicia's phone buzzed again. A friend from college. "Girl, your video is on Black Twitter. Over 80K views. They're calling her Aunt E airspace." I'm screaming. She turned the camera toward herself for a second. "I don't know who this woman is, but y'all." She didn't raise her voice once, and they still shook like she'd pulled a knife. In the crew jump seat, a flight attendant checked the cabin log. A new flag had appeared beside 3C Yellow 9. It wasn't a common code. Not many of the junior staff even recognized it, but she did. It meant, "Watch closely. Treat with respect. Someone at the top cares about this person, whether you know why or not." She pressed a quick acknowledgement and stood to refresh her memory on the procedures. From where she stood, Evelyn Brooks looked like someone's grandmother. But the posture, the silence, the writing, something wasn't adding up. Trevor's phone buzzed as well, a soft ping, message from internal ops. Subject, watch notice, row 3C, details classified. Passenger confirmed high priority internal status. No conflict unless initiated by passenger. Do not escalate. Trevor stared at the screen, then stared down the aisle. Then back at Candace. "We need to stop talking to her," he said simply. "She's not regular." Candace frowned. "She's not VIP in the system?" Trevor locked eyes with her. "She's not in the system we see." In 3C, Evelyn turned another page, wrote 3 more lines, then looked out the window. Her fingers traced the edge of the tray table once, then rested. Not even the hum of the plane's engine had started yet, but Evelyn Brooks, she was already in motion. Alicia's live stream had passed 92,000 views by the time Evelyn Brooks reached into her purse again. No sudden movement, no dramatic gesture, just the silent, confident glide of someone retrieving a tool. Not a weapon. Her fingers found the phone. Slim, matte black, a worn case that didn't flash brand names or status. She didn't look around, didn't warn anyone. She just pressed a single contact and lifted the phone to her ear. "Monique," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm at Charlotte Douglas, flight 728 to LaGuardia." A pause. "They've made a mistake." Another pause. "No, don't call legal yet. I'm giving them a chance." Longer silence. "Activate standby protocols. If I don't call back in 10 minutes, notify Vance and start internal flagging." She didn't explain, didn't raise her tone, just ended the call and set the phone on the armrest like it was done. From her position at the galley, one of the flight attendants had caught part of the conversation. She didn't mean to, she hadn't tried, but she'd heard the phrase clear as crystal, "Notify Vance." That wasn't a name you said lightly. Vance, as in Cynthia Vance, current CEO of Skylink Airlines. The name was in every quarterly shareholder call, every industry panel, every email footer on corporate memos. The attendant felt her stomach drop. Near the back of business class, Candace's scanner lit up with a notification. "Override in progress. Source Central Command. Access key user redacted. Alert. Passenger 3C data lockout lifted by executive proxy." She blinked, looked at Trevor. "You seeing this?" Trevor had just gotten the same alert on his tablet. "Someone's in the system," he muttered. "From above. Who?" "No idea. But that's not coming from here." Meanwhile, Alicia was still recording. Her chat was running wild. "Girl just made a call and the plane got quiet." Who is she? Somebody said her name's Evelyn Brooks. Wait, is that the investor lady? The thread exploded. One viewer posted a screenshot of an old business magazine article. From protest to portfolio, how Evelyn Brooks became the silent force behind corporate reform. Another posted a video clip from a year-old panel, Evelyn speaking softly to a crowd of Harvard students. We don't fight the system by shouting at it. We restructure it from within. Alicia didn't even blink. She just whispered, "Okay, y'all. I think we're in the middle of something real." In seat 1D, the man with the tablet had gone pale. He closed all apps, tapped on his notes app, typed 3 words, "Evelyn Brooks, present." He didn't send it, just saved the note and watched. Back in 3C, Evelyn opened her notebook again. She wrote one sentence. Called Monique at 2:17 p.m., gave window. She underlined the word window. Then leaned back, folded her hands and waited. The hum of the plane didn't fill the silence. Because silence now had tension. The kind that wrapped around necks. The kind that made people whisper without knowing why. Trevor stepped into the aisle, looked straight at Evelyn and said carefully, "Ma'am, is there someone we should be calling?" Evelyn didn't move, didn't blink, but she did speak, calmly, flatly. "I'd recommend you notify your director." She met his eyes, "because if you don't, this will escalate." Trevor Slade wasn't new to drama. He'd seen his share of irate passengers, red-faced consultants, and mothers demanding first class for their toddlers. He dealt with military veterans yelling about freedom, teenagers crying about prom dresses left behind, and even a man who brought a live iguana in his carry-on. But this wasn't noise. It was precision, and it scared him more than shouting ever could. His tablet buzzed again, another alert. Level 2 escalation, passenger 3C, legal hold triggered, do not remove. Legal hold? That phrase didn't exist in the standard passenger protocol. Trevor tapped into the back-end system. Half the fields were now grayed out, locked, access, restricted, source, corporate legal division. Times 10, 2:23 p.m. He turned to Candace, who had returned from the galley looking like she'd aged 10 years. "We need a supervisor, like, not you or me." Candace glanced at the screen. "Why is legal involved?" Trevor didn't answer. He was already dialing. On the 4th ring, a voice answered. "Skylink Management Support, Level 2. This is Trevor Slade. I need Director Roy, passenger escalation." Director Roy is in a closed-door session. "All department heads are in emergency strategy call." Trevor froze. "Why? I'm not authorized to share, but if this is about a passenger 3C in Charlotte?" Trevor's spine went cold. "Yes, it is." The line went quiet for a beat. Then, with unspoken weight, the voice replied, "Then I suggest you do nothing until further notice." Meanwhile, in seat 3C, Evelyn didn't look up. She typed a single sentence into a secure app. "Confirm protocol dispatch. Begin phase 2 documentation. Internal timestamp 2:26 p.m. Then she closed the app, returned to her notebook, and calmly wrote down the name Trevor Slade. Above her, the overhead light buzzed once, then stopped. A moment later, the cabin lights flickered softly as the aircraft systems resynced. No one noticed, except Evelyn. Alicia's live stream was gaining speed. She'd been asked the same question 20 times now. "Do you know who she is?" At first she didn't answer. She didn't want to speculate, but then a blue check account joined the comments. At Equity Watch. "Alicia, this is Lena Torres with the Journal. DM us, please. This might be bigger than a seat issue." Alicia's eyes widened. She whispered, "Oh my God," and texted back. Her audience doubled in 5 minutes. Up in 2A, a woman who hadn't spoken yet turned to her husband and murmured, "Didn't Evelyn Brooks donate to that airline safety reform panel last year?" He blinked. "Brooks? Wait, the Evelyn Brooks? I think so." He turned in his seat and looked down the aisle. Evelyn still wasn't moving. still writing, still completely, terrifyingly composed. Trevor returned to the business class cabin. He didn't speak for a moment, then turned to Candace. "No one is to speak to passenger 3C. No instructions, no requests." Candace opened her mouth. Trevor shook his head. "We're standing down." Evelyn looked up for the first time in nearly 10 minutes. Her voice was soft, gentle, but final. "If you're ready," she said to Trevor and Candace, "we can have a conversation. No threat, no demand, just, if you're ready." Trevor nodded slowly. Candace didn't move. Evelyn reached into her satchel and pulled out a slim black folio. "Because I assure you," she added, "I'm prepared." The first email came at 2:31 p.m. It wasn't dramatic, no red flag, no subject line screaming crisis, just a quiet ping in the inbox of Clara Vincent, Legal Compliance Manager at Skylink's East Region HQ. Subject: Shareholder Access Query Priority. Brooks. E. She blinked. It wasn't the name that caught her eye, it was the suffix. E. Brooks, Chair, External Holdings, TA Access, TA. That level was reserved for individuals with controlling stakes, board-level access, oversight committee seats. Clara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She opened the attachment. Entity reference: Brooks Equity Holdings, LLC. Stake: 12.4%. Voting shares: Associated Liaison, Monique Carter. Confirmed entity signature: Evelyn M. Brooks. Her heart skipped. Then she stood. Back inside the aircraft, the silence had shifted. It wasn't the usual waiting room awkwardness. This was reverence, the kind that follows a realization too big to speak aloud. Trevor stood by the galley, tablet clutched but forgotten. He stared blankly at the notification on screen. Asset owner confirmed, do not escalate without director-level review. He scribbled a line. The last words read, "In full copyright. Presence of Evelyn Brooks requires stakeholder protocol. Full documentation required before any service decision." Candace finally broke. "I've never seen a notice like this," she whispered. Trevor didn't respond. He was staring at Evelyn again, still seated, still silent, still waiting. Alicia's phone buzzed again, this time not a friend, not a follower, a verified CNN producer. "Hi Alicia, we're tracking a breaking passenger rights story. Is the woman in your video the Evelyn Brooks from Brooks Equity?" She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she turned her camera back to Evelyn. Her hand shook slightly. The live comments had slowed. Then one line, "This woman changed corporate governance at 2 Fortune 500s and walked away without press. She's legendary." In row 2, a quiet man in his 60s had been flipping through the in-flight magazine. But something had caught his eye. A list of corporate donors from the Women in Aviation Equity Fund featured prominently on page 42. One name topped the column: Evelyn M. Brooks, founding chairwoman. He stared, then slowly looked over at seat 3C. His mouth opened just slightly, then closed. Back at HQ, Clara walked into her director's office without knocking. "Brooks Equity?" she said. "She's not flying with us, she's watching us." Her director, already pale, reached for his phone. "Patch me through to the regional VP, now!" Inside the aircraft, the atmosphere began to fracture. Some passengers whispered, others checked their phones. One man took out a folded copy of the Financial Times and started flipping pages frantically. Another was texting someone, "You ever heard of Evelyn Brooks? She's sitting 3 feet from me." And Evelyn, she clicked her pen closed, turned toward Trevor and said softly, "How long until your regional director joins us?" Trevor's voice caught. "Soon, ma'am." Evelyn offered a half smile. "I'd like to speak with someone who understands stakes." Then she turned back to her notebook and resumed writing. The plane had not moved, and yet Everything had shifted. From the outside, Flight 728 to LaGuardia looked routine. Tarmac, fuel trucks, idle engines. But inside cabin 16, the air was dense. Not hot, not loud, just full. Every whisper now carried weight. Every glance held meaning. In seat 3C, Evelyn Brooks hadn't stood, hadn't raised her voice, but somehow she had rerouted an entire system. Trevor's tablet vibrated again. This time, direct call from Regional Operations Command. He stepped toward the galley, answered quietly. Trevor Slade. Mr. Slade, this is Director Wyman. We're pausing boarding for Flight 728 for 10 minutes. 10? Use that time to step away from seat 3C. Coordination has been moved to Central Oversight. You're no longer point on this. Trevor swallowed. Yes, sir. And Trevor, don't engage her again. Let the system work. Click. Candace met him by the curtain. They're pulling us off? Trevor nodded. Legal's handling it. Executive Affairs is looped in. We're just observers now. She looked toward Evelyn. She hasn't moved, Trevor replied, almost with a shiver. She didn't have to. At the same moment, Evelyn's phone lit up. A single message from Monique. Phase 2 cleared. You have full authority. She read it, then turned her phone face down. No visible emotion. She opened her notebook, checked off a single box, then closed it with care. Folded the shawl at her side, adjusted her seatbelt, and waited. In row 4, a younger flight attendant leaned toward a senior lead. Wait, is she like some kind of airline exec? The senior shook her head slowly. No, she's worse. Worse? She's the one they call when execs go quiet. The younger woman blinked. So she owns part of Skylink? No, came the answer. She owns the questions they're afraid to answer. Evelyn reached into her wallet, pulled out a single card. Not a driver's license, not an ID. A matte black metal card, etched with no name, just a tiny gold insignia in the corner. Equity Board, Executive Access. She set it on the tray table, didn't explain. Candace, watching from the galley, took one look and turned away. The plane's PA system crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We're just experiencing a brief delay before pushback. Thank you for your patience. Voices rose, groans, complaints. Someone shouted, Are we going to miss connections? Another, this better not be over some seat mix-up. But no one in rows 1 through 4 moved. No one looked at Evelyn. Because somehow they already knew this wasn't a mix-up. This was a correction. Evelyn leaned her head gently back, closed her eyes, and whispered to herself, Let them come to me. At exactly 2:52 p.m., the curtain between first and business class pulled back. She walked in wearing a sleek navy suit, tight bun, perfect badge, a clipboard in one hand, a calm expression in the other. Louise Hartley, Regional Director, Customer Operations. To the average passenger, she looked like control itself. To Evelyn Brooks, she looked expected. Ms. Brooks, Louise began, voice smooth. My name is Louise Hartley. I know who you are, Evelyn said quietly without looking up from her notes. You're the person they call when the internet notices, Louise faltered, just slightly. I'm here to make this right, she continued, choosing her words. We'd like to offer our sincerest apologies for the... Evelyn raised a hand. I didn't ask for an apology. She turned to face her. I asked for the record. Louise blinked. Record. Gate C, Terminal 4, between 2:03 and 2:17. The footage, the audio logs, and the time-stamped interaction report between your agents and myself. You have it. Louise hesitated. That's an internal document. No. Evelyn replied. It's part of an investigation, internal to my office. The silence after that sentence wasn't loud. It was final. A few rows back, Alicia didn't dare raise her phone. Not yet. Louise cleared her throat. Ms. Brooks, I understand your position, and on behalf of Skylink, we'd like to extend full complimentary executive access for the remainder of your travel. Upgrades, concierge. Evelyn laughed. Just once. Soft. Then leaned slightly forward. You cannot upgrade someone already above your ceiling. She let that settle, then added, This is no longer about the seat. It's about the structure that decided I didn't belong in it. Louise tightened her grip on the clipboard. May I ask what you intend to do? Evelyn replied, You're asking the wrong question. A pause. What you should be asking is how many other Evelyn Brooks have we erased before they had the language to fight back? Louise said nothing. She adjusted her blazer, cleared her throat, then offered a small nod. I'll return shortly, she said. With the file. Evelyn nodded once. Good. Bring a chair, too. Louise froze. I'm sorry? Evelyn looked her dead in the eye. You'll want to sit for what happens next. They came back with chairs, 3 of them. Louise Hartley, this time with 2 others, a woman in a blazer 2 sizes too stiff, holding a notepad, and a thin, balding man wearing a lanyard that screamed legal. They didn't walk in. They approached, like diplomats crossing into a territory they hadn't mapped. Evelyn didn't move, didn't offer a smile, just tapped the seat across from her, the jump seat usually reserved for flight attendants. Louise sat. The others followed. Alicia, in row 5, turned her camera on. She whispered, This ain't a flight delay, this is a reckoning. And her stream title updated to Live Meeting Brooks, The Seat Meeting. Evelyn opened her notebook. No preamble, no apology. I'd like to begin by stating that I am not seeking compensation, she said. I am seeking accountability. The lawyer nodded slowly. Understood, Miss Brooks. Evelyn continued, voice even. On March 4th, a black woman was removed from a business class seat on Flight 212. The lawyer blinked. Evelyn flipped a page. April 19th, Terminal 7. Agent override for a confirmed upgrade, passenger denied boarding. Flip. June 8th, Gate D14. Woman with platinum status rerouted to economy. Her name? Dr. Kamala Reese. She looked up. I funded her dissertation. The woman from PR opened her mouth. Regret, likely, but Evelyn raised a finger. Please, not yet. Across the cabin, passengers had gone still. The man in 1B stopped scrolling. The woman in 4A took out earbuds. Even the baby 2 rows back had gone quiet. Because this was no longer a dispute. It was a presentation, and the presenter was surgical. Louise spoke carefully. We acknowledge the harm caused, Miss Brooks, but these events are not always directly related. They are not accidental either, Evelyn cut in. She turned to the lawyer. Would you like to see the internal audit logs? The discrepancy rate by race for business class override decisions? The lawyer's pen stopped moving. I had access, Evelyn added, until this morning. She smiled. Then someone tried to lock me out. A beat. Let's just say that was unwise. The PR woman shifted. Mrs. Brooks, is there a way we can resolve this in a way that aligns with your comfort? Evelyn finally looked her in the eyes. I don't need comfort. She paused. I need clarity. Then, slowly, in your system, is a seat like this considered a privilege? A longer pause. Or is it a barrier? The air thinned. Not from altitude, from truth. No one answered. Not yet. Because there were no words prepared for that kind of question. Not from a customer, and certainly not from a woman they'd tried to make disappear. The stock dipped. Not by much, just 0.7% at first, but the traders noticed. Algorithms flagged unusual search terms. Skylink, Evelyn Brooks, discrimination, stakeholder interference. By 3:20 p.m., 10 separate trading bots had shifted Skylink Holdings into watch mode. At high sixth, at the floor, boardroom lights flickered on. Inside, the CEO, the chief of legal, public affairs, and someone from investor relations who looked like they wanted to disappear. A TV in the corner played a live stream from the Equity channel. Title: Who is Evelyn Brooks? On screen, a still image of Evelyn, seated in 3C. Calm, clean, unbothered. The CEO didn't speak, he just pointed at the screen. "Tell me," he asked, "how did we let this woman fly without briefing?" No one had an answer. The PR lead swallowed. She's not officially listed as executive. She holds equity through a private trust. She holds 12.4% voting power. Legal snapped. "She could call for a vote on us," added investor relations, eyes wide. The room fell silent. Back on the plane, the mood was different. Alicia stared at her phone, mouth half open. Mentions climbing by the second. "Lena Waithe just reposted it," she whispered. "Oh my God, MSNBC wants to do a call-in at 4. Am I in a story or?" The woman beside her patted her arm gently. "You're in history, baby." Passengers had stopped looking frustrated. Now they just looked reverent. Someone whispered, "She's like a storm sitting still." Another leaned toward the aisle. "Did she plan this?" Trevor overheard. He didn't answer, because he was wondering the same thing. And Evelyn still didn't move, still didn't speak. She held a small cloth in one hand, dabbing a spot of condensation from her water cup, as if nothing had changed. On the other end of the plane, a young logistics assistant sat by the gate door, watching the internal feed. Her name was Maya, 26, first job out of college, still learning codes and luggage protocols. She had watched the entire thing, and now, heart racing, she opened her Skylink staff app. Searched Brooks, Evelyn. Nothing. Then she opened her personal phone, found Alicia's stream, watched again, paused on the look in Evelyn's eyes. Then, with trembling thumbs, she composed a message. Not to a department, not to legal, just to the inbox Evelyn listed on her public nonprofit site, from Maya Gwynn to contact@equitycatalyst.org. Subject: I saw you. I don't work in leadership, I'm just part of operations, but I saw what they did. I saw how you stayed calm, how you didn't fight to be seen. You waited for the world to realize it missed you. I believe you, I'm sorry." She hit send, and for the first time all day, someone at Skylink told Evelyn Brooks the truth. By 3:55 p.m., the offers had turned desperate. A quiet knock at Evelyn's seat. Louise again, paler now. "Miss Brooks," she said, careful, "we've been authorized to reroute a jet from Raleigh. We can have you in New York by 5. Just say the word." Evelyn looked up. "If I wanted a jet," she said, "I'd already be on mine." Louise swallowed. "We just want to make this right." Evelyn shook her head. "You can't make it right in an afternoon." She stood. Finally, and the air shifted again, Candace stepped forward instinctively. "May I assist you with anything, Miss Brooks?" Evelyn looked at her kindly. "Yes, help me off this aircraft. I finished what I came for." Trevor said nothing, just opened the cabin door. Alicia followed, still filming, until Evelyn turned to her. Not cold, not warm, just honest. "You've done good work," Evelyn said. Then, softly, "But someday, put the camera down and build something they can't delete." Alicia blinked, nodded, and lowered her phone. Outside, the tarmac shimmered in late afternoon gold. No red carpet, no security detail, just a jet bridge. And the truth that everyone had watched unfold. Evelyn walked alone, step by step, past the gate agents who now stood up as she passed. Not because they were told to, but because something inside them insisted it. She crossed the lane marked priority only. Didn't pause, didn't wave, didn't look back, just walked through. like she'd owned it the whole time. Thank you for listening to the end of this story. You know, what Evelyn Brooks did wasn't just powerful, it was necessary. Because too often black women are told to be silent, to shrink, to not make it a scene. But Evelyn didn't raise her voice, she didn't scream, she let the system speak for itself and watched it collapse. This story reminds me, power doesn't always look like a podium or a title. Sometimes it looks like a woman in seat 3C with a notebook, a sharp mind, and the patience to wait for truth to reveal itself. If this story moved you, if it made you think or reminded you of someone you know, share it, comment below, tag a sister, send it to someone who needs to hear it. And please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because here we tell stories that weren't meant to be told, and we're just getting started.